South Africa is not only impressive due to its size, but also due to its amazing variety of fascinating scenery. Its paradise-like flora and fauna, plus its historic and famous landmarks, are totally captivating. Johannesburg is a modern metropolis. With around 1.48 million inhabitants, it's the capital of Gauteng Province and the largest city in South Africa. It was founded in 1886 when gold was first discovered at Witwater Beach. Soon, Johannesburg grew into a city with a population of 100,000. Although the mines were closed down some time ago, the people have retained their sense of rhythm. Johannesburg Zoo is 100 years old. Although European influence is obvious in South Africa, the first inhabitants of this fascinating country were of course the various indigenous people of Africa. The village of Lesedi, around 25 kilometres south of Johannesburg, provides many insights into ancient Africa's traditions and dances. Lesedi contains 4 tiny villages that are inhabited by Zulus, Xhosas, and members of the smaller Pedi and Basotho tribes. The 1,000-year-old culture of South Africa's 4 main tribes and their traditional dances and songs are particularly impressive. South of Pretoria, in today's Tshwane, the Witwater monument commemorates the bloody history of the country's first European settlers. Paul Kruger, the greatest hero of the Boers, is also honoured here. Under his leadership, farmers of European origin revolted against British rule in South Africa at the end of the 19th century. The First Boer War in 1881 brought the Boers independence in the provinces of the Transvaal and the Orange Free State. In 1883, Kruger became the president of the Transvaal and 12 months later founded the Republic of South Africa. In addition to the country's historic and cultural attractions, the native inhabitants of South Africa also attract large numbers of visitors. Around 140 kilometres west of Pretoria is the legendary Sun City. Its contrast with the surrounding area couldn't be more striking. An artificial water world set amid the arid savannah. One of the main attractions of any visit to Sun City is the luxurious hotel complex, Palace of the Lost City. Its dimensions and furnishings are breathtaking. The historic Pilgrims Rest awakens nostalgic memories of the first gold rush in this region. When, in 1873, gold prospector William Trafford discovered the precious mineral here, news of his good fortune spread like wildfire. Only a few days after his discovery, thousands of gold prospectors came and settled here. Pilgrims Rest soon became the first large gold mining town in South Africa. The Royal Hotel is still at the centre of this well-preserved village. Close to Pilgrims Rest is one of the most beautiful landscapes in South Africa, Blyde River Canyon, a spectacular 26-kilometre long and 800-metre deep canyon. The erosion caused by the confluence of the Treu and Blyde rivers has created a number of amazing rock formations. The whirlpools of the Burke's Luck potholes have become one of the most famous attractions in Blyde River Canyon. And the oldest park in South Africa features some striking wonders of nature. The origins of the Kruger National Park date back to 1898. The Kruger National Park is now one of the most important wildlife sanctuaries in Africa. A huge variety of animals live here. At first sight, these yawning hippopotamus appear to be quite docile, but the opposite is true. These weighty animals can be extremely aggressive. During its 100 years of existence, the Kruger National Park has grown into a large company with more than 600 employees. A visit to the historic old town of Port Elizabeth is like travelling back in time. Everything here is reminiscent of British colonial times. The Portuguese discovered Algoa Bay in the 15th century, and in 1820, the first settlers came here. Before the town became fully established, the mighty Fort Frederick guarded the important mouth of the Bakens River that in those days was used as a harbour. Sheltered bays are few and far between along South Africa's coastline. Port Elizabeth is often the starting point of South Africa's garden route that travels 750 kilometres along the coast. The Tsitsikamma National Park was founded in 1987 and is situated about 100 kilometres to the west of Port Elizabeth. It extends right up to the Indian Ocean. The park is renowned for its large variety of bird life. 220 species have been recorded in this relatively small area. The 18 square kilometre Kanaisna Lagoon is often referred to as the jewel of the garden route. The rocks of the heads of Kanaisna help to subdue the powerful waves of the Indian Ocean. With its picturesque forests, mountains and coastline, Kanaisna is extremely popular with both locals and tourists alike. Gourmets have also discovered this lagoon due to the famous Kanaisna oysters. This popular delicacy is also exported. South Africa also delights railway enthusiasts. The beautiful landscape of this region contains several well-known railroads. In addition to the legendary Blue Train and Shongologo Express that travel between Johannesburg and Kapstad, there's also a large variety of fascinating regional trains. There's no limit to the modes of transport that are used to cover South Africa's diverse terrain. A camel ride is a memorable way by which to enjoy the landscape. The town of Oudtshoorn has gradually developed into an important centre of ostrich breeding. The breeding of these birds is well established here. In the middle of the 19th century, some of the local farmers caught a number of young ostriches and began to breed them. Today, Oudtshoorn contains around 90,000 ostriches. They're even used for racing. Returning to the coast, we arrive at the unofficial gateway to the garden route, the calm Mossel Bay. The first Europeans landed in this region. Mossel Bay village has several interesting historic buildings. Some of them have been transformed into atmospheric hotels, such as the old post office. The first governor of the Cape, Jan van Riebeeck, believed that both the climate and the soil of this region were ideal for the production of wine. One of the country's former centres of vine growing is located in Franschhoek, that is known as the French Quarter, and was founded in the 17th century by the French Huguenots. The importance here of wine production is highlighted by the region's many vineyards. There are more than 200 of them. The South African vine-growing region and its first-class hotels, guest houses and restaurants is reminiscent of similar areas in Europe. In the beginning of the 18th century, Cape Town was a rural settlement until a rural elite gradually developed here. The city's main landmark, Table Mountain, provides a superb view of the surrounding area. For seafarers, this 1,000-metre-high mountain was once a symbol of hope. It was where they took on fresh supplies and sought shelter from the raging ocean. However, Table Bay was not an ideal harbour. It protected against the treacherous southeasterly winds, but in winter, the northwesterlies brought new danger. Numerous ships were grounded or were lost beneath the waves. But the harbour of today offers substantial protection from the elements. The Cape of Good Hope is situated at the southern point of Cape Peninsula. It has a nature reserve of the same name that covers 8,000 hectares. It's a good idea to keep a watchful eye on the baboons here. They can be aggressive and can sometimes even attack. The flora at the Cape of Good Hope is extremely impressive. It contains around 1,350 varieties of plant life. Most of them belong to the family of fynbos vegetation that favours highly fertile soil. Further inland is the capital of Namibia, Windhoek. Compared with most capital cities, Windhoek is relatively small. The temperate climate of the highlands and the city's splendid parks make Windhoek an extremely pleasant place in which to live. It's highly evocative of colonial times. Windhoek train station is the starting point of a unique journey on the Desert Express that travels to distant Swakop. 1895 marked the beginning of Namibia's first railroad. However, the Desert Express was only introduced in recent years. We take a short break at a lion farm. The baby lions are totally adorable, and it's hard to imagine how they can grow into such fearsome creatures. As the sun sets on the horizon, Desert Express travels through the night. The next morning, the train stops in the Namibian Desert. After 20 hours, we enter the final leg of the journey on the Desert Express between Windhoek and Swakop. The train is now travelling across the outer part of the Namibian Desert on its journey to the Atlantic coast. The town of Swakop has around 20,000 inhabitants. Its architecture is still strongly influenced by former German colonial times. Whether the train station or the old imperial district court, Swakop is full of German atmosphere. These typical timber frame houses were built to remind their occupants of their homeland. Today, the contrast of these buildings with the surrounding desert scenery is truly captivating. Our journey through the fascinating south of Africa continues by light aircraft. We fly in a northerly direction along the ill-famed Skeleton Coast. Numerous ships have either sunk or run aground on the Skeleton Coast that has most certainly lived up to its colourful name, as most of those who were able to reach land eventually perished. The remoteness of this harsh desert made survival virtually impossible. When exploring this wilderness, it's essential to take proper equipment and plan the trip carefully. With its many craters, Moon Valley is evocative of the lunar landscape. This unusual area was formed during a wet period around 460 million years ago by the Swakop River, that is one of the longest and widest rivers in Namibia. Although the scenery here appears to be hostile and barren, the rocks of Moon Valley are not without life. A number of animals have adapted to this habitat. They only become active at night. The region became famous due to a miraculous plant, the Welwitschia Mirabilis, a living fossil that was first discovered in the middle of the 19th century. This plant has leaves that can grow up to 3 meters long, but their unique feature is that some can survive for up to 600 years. In spite of the arid conditions here, the oldest example of the Welwitschia Mirabilis is thought to be 2,000 years old. In some sections, the desert extends to the Atlantic coast. This area is popular with the pelican. The dunes of the Namibian desert are also used for modern adventures. These range from paragliding to various popular tours on quad bikes. Those vehicles are well suited to desert terrain. We continue to travel south towards Swakop. Next, we arrive at Walvis Bay. Just south of the village are a number of fascinating sea salt factories. Next to the evaporation basins of the salt works that produce 400,000 tons of salt each year is a small settlement. The lack of tourist attractions here is more than compensated for by the warm welcome given to us by the inhabitants of Walvis Bay. Beyond the town is the beauty of the African landscape and its wildlife. The flamingo has found the perfect habitat in Walvis Bay's lagoon. From here, it's a good idea to visit the nearby Namibian Park. The route is covered with rocks. The main section of the park is not open to the public. Here, the protection of nature is more important than tourism. The park's roads and pathways often require maintenance. Thus, gravel rakes are a common sight on the roads. This region is dominated by 3 different kinds of landscape: the Namibian Desert, the Comas Highlands and the Naukluft Mountains in the northeast of the Namib-Naukluft Park. This park, situated on the west coast of Namibia, saw much expansion in the 20th century. And measuring 50,000 square kilometres, it's the largest nature reserve in Africa and the 4th largest in the world. The Namibian desert is one of the driest areas on Earth. Sometimes it doesn't rain here for years. Despite the aridity and intense heat, it's possible to come across a family of ostriches in this, their natural environment. They don't seem to be particularly bothered by the scorching heat. The gravel road leads up to the extensive Comas Highlands and cooler conditions. The journey on the narrow roads is quite exciting and not without its dangers. With deep abysses at the side of the road, the driver must remain focused, but the journey is well worth it. After a few kilometres, the road travels west and we reach the spectacular dune landscape of Xhosas, a unique area of the park. 1945 is a unique site because at a height of more than 300 meters, it's one of the biggest sand dunes in the world. In an area that stretches for 70 kilometres, majestic sand dunes flank the route. Here it seems as if the vegetation has given up the fight of survival in the overwhelmingly harsh climate. The remoteness of the mighty sand dunes and the few remaining trees give this landscape an almost magical atmosphere. The journey through Namib Park continues in a southerly direction, through barren desert and rocky terrain. It's completely deserted. When we leave the side roads and return to the main route south, the dusty gravel tracks are replaced by asphalt roads. At dusk, there's an impressively colourful spectacle on the horizon. The sun slowly disappears from the sky. The landscape shines out for one last time in a reddish glow before night sets in across this vast desert region. The picturesque harbour town of Lüderitz is the last station of this fascinating tour through the Namib Park. The barren granite rocks of the coast make one feel as though one's arrived at the end of the world. The colourful, welcoming houses of Lüderitz are in stark contrast to the location of the town that is often subjected to the natural forces of the sea like no other town in Namibia. The Gurkha House at Diamond Mountain dates back to the town's most prosperous years when Lüderitz became renowned for its diamonds. Since 1956, the once busy suburb of Kolmenskop has been a ghost town. The true dimensions of the Namibian desert can be better appreciated from above. The flight from south to north is an unforgettable experience. By light aircraft, it's possible to fly over almost the entire desert that geologically is the oldest desert in the world. A journey that was once extremely hazardous and took several days or weeks can now be covered in just a few hours. Prior to touchdown, we take a final look across the remote wilderness of the desert landscape below and its 2,000-metre-high mountains. The Etosha National Park in the north of Namibia is one of the largest nature reserves in the world. In the dry winter months, hundreds of thousands of animals gather here and make this park into Africa's most populated wildlife area. The importance of this region was recognized many years ago. In 1907, Etosha became a protected area as ordered by Governor Lindqvist. The Etosha National Park now contains 110 varieties of mammal, including legendary African animals such as the lion, giraffe and elephant that spend most of their time close to the park's numerous watering holes. Zimbabwe is a large country in southern Africa that has many natural sights. Victoria Falls is undoubtedly the most famous natural spectacle on the entire continent of Africa. The local people refer to the gigantic waterfalls as thundering steam. The famous Scottish missionary and African explorer Dr. David Livingstone was the first European to discover the waterfalls in 1855. Overwhelmed by the sight of these thundering masses of water, he named the waterfalls after the British Queen Victoria. Livingstone's literary accounts of his experiences proved to be extremely popular. And what could be more adventurous than to explore the surroundings of Victoria Falls on the back of a pachyderm provided by one of the local elephant safari companies? In contrast to its smaller Indian relative, the African elephant is quite difficult to train. But nevertheless, it appears to be content in its work. The group of elephants slowly follows the watercourse. Considering the hot temperature and the huge thirst of this creature that is the world's largest land mammal, it's not surprising that it adores water. The town of Victoria Falls has developed into a popular tourist destination. The traditional dances of various African tribes are performed here. Dance masks are an important part of the country's culture. The prejudice of the white settlers who thought that Africa's native inhabitants lacked culture was grossly misplaced. Botswana, the western neighbour of Zimbabwe, has enjoyed much prosperity in recent years. This is due in large part to the many wealthy safari visitors who come here. Kasane Market provides an interesting insight into the daily life of the people. Most of the goods come from the famous Chobe River region that is located nearby. One of the advantages of Kasane is its strategic location between Victoria Falls and the Chobe River. The Chobe River has its source in the highlands of Angola. Here it is called the Cuando. It is one of the most important tributaries of the famous Zambezi. The moist, food-rich savanna of the Chobe National Park is an ideal habitat for Africa's wildlife. These large animals are truly at home here. The large nature reserve is well known for its large population of wildlife that live both on land and in water. The water is full of hippopotamus. These heavy and unpredictable inhabitants of the Chobe prefer slow-flowing water. They're a common sight in this part of Botswana. This country is one of the most sparsely inhabited areas in the world. Thus, to encounter local fishermen is a rare event. For thousands of years, they have used their traditional log canoe, the mokoros. Since the first settlers arrived here, fish has been a vital source of food, and there's an abundance of fish here. The beauty of this river is plain to see, and this area contains a number of exclusive safari lodges, such as the idyllic Chobe Marina Lodge. The well-laid-out garden evokes memories of colonial times, and there's a fine view across the tributary of the Chobe River. There's a large variety of boat tours on offer. The main river is only a few minutes away. Huge herds of elephant are one of the park's main attractions. Their daily drinking ritual on the Chobe River is a particularly intriguing sight. But the national park is also famous for its many birds that are threatened by extinction. The white-tailed eagle and even the vulture are quite a rare sight today. A crocodile sleeps in the sun. But this tranquil scene suddenly changes when the large reptile suddenly abandons the water and disappears. Some of the river islands in the Chobe National Park area are inhabited by native tribes. They've lived in this region since time immemorial and have gradually developed permanent settlements. Near to the region of Kasane, in the northeastern section of the park, live around a quarter of the members of the Basubi tribe. However, most of the settlements along the river are only inhabited at certain times of the year. In the rainy season, when the islands become flooded, the villages must be abandoned and the inhabitants relocated. We come across several elephant in the water. As on land, these huge animals travel through the water in a single line. It's usually hunger that makes them cross the river. On the other bank, the Mopane forests contain much nourishment. The town of Maun is the gateway to another fascinating area of Botswana. In recent years, it's become a popular tourist destination. This town on the border of the Okavango Delta has a museum. Contemporary paintings by local artists and traditional crafts provide visitors with a fascinating insight into the culture of this region. A few hunting trophies have also found their way into the Maun Museum. They highlight the skill of the local hunters. Endless grassy plains cover large stretches of the Okavango Delta. At first it looks more like a marshland than a river delta. One of the most adventurous and spectacular ways in which to experience the unique beauty of the Okavango Delta is by helicopter, an expensive but extremely impressive way in which to enjoy the scenery. Frightened by the noise of the helicopter, the wildlife below scatters. From above, the running giraffes are at their most majestic. After we have returned to solid ground, our journey through the tangled Okavango Delta continues in a cross-country vehicle. Our next stop is Rand's Camp, that has become a symbol of luxurious safaris. But more important than the comforts offered by the camp is its location, set amid a magnificent wilderness. Rand's Camp is not cheap, but the authentic atmosphere within the heart of the delta has been preserved due to the small number of tourists who come here. For most, the cost of a safari holiday here would be too expensive. The beauty of the water lily was revered in ancient Egypt. They're one of the most splendid plants in this region. Some giraffes cross our path and vanish into the bush. They don't appear to be fazed by our safari. Small waterways travel through this densely overgrown area. It would be easy to become lost. Of the various lodges and camps here, one of the main attractions is the Okavango riding camp. For 20 years, this has fulfilled the dreams of many a horse lover. But to travel into the wilderness on horseback is only suitable for experienced riders. Here, adventure can soon turn into tragedy. Should danger suddenly threaten, the rider must have the ability to ride away at speed. Fortunately, there have been few incidents involving dangerous animals here. Little disturbs the natural tranquility of this unique camp. After a short while, we have another encounter with Africa's wildlife. The heads of some hippos appear from the water. Various creatures come to the riverbank to drink and then disappear again. Most animals move in large herds through the Okavango Delta. The water highlights the large variety of animals that live in this region. The plant-eating animals appear to lead a calm existence. The adult elephant certainly has few enemies. The numerous islands and wetland areas of the delta are a real paradise for a number of animals such as the giraffe, zebra and warthog. The vulture also favours this area. Due to the many predatory animals that live here, there are usually a few tasty carcasses scattered around for these large birds. A water reservoir announces Gaborone, the capital of Botswana. The Gaborone Dam supplies the city's 200,000 inhabitants with drinking water. The townscape of Gaborone is dominated by modern skyscrapers and office buildings. The city's modern shopping centres are full of cosmopolitan flair. Glass structures, such as the Botswana Savings Bank, have become landmarks of this city that has prospered due to the number of mines in the vicinity. Large areas of the country are covered by the Kalahari, a huge semi-desert that in some sections looks like a dry savanna. It's the final refuge of an ancient African tribe, the San. Our tour with two local bushmen begins early the next morning. The trees contain the huge nests of the weaver bird. The scorching heat beating down onto the arid landscape is quite severe. The local wildlife has adapted itself to the lack of water. They've gradually learned how to survive here. But for the members of this outing, the temperatures are quite exhausting and sap away at overheated energy levels. However, these discomforts are soon forgotten when the bushmen begin to hunt. The traditional hunting methods of the San have changed little over the years. Today, however, even the bushmen could not survive from hunting alone. They earn a modest living from the nearby Deception Lodge. For thousands of years, age-old survival techniques have been handed down from one generation onto the next. These ostrich eggs have a practical application. They're used by the San to store water. The San only take the bare minimum from nature. To them, waste is unknown. In the Kalahari, everything has a value, the most essential of which are the few watering places that are to be found here. They can make the difference between life and death. After taking a short refreshment, we travel deeper into the dry savanna. Soon the bushmen show us another of their skills. They soon construct a trap. Although they use only the most basic materials such as rope, both bushmen are satisfied that the trap will work. Suddenly, they begin to dig. They extract a bulbous root and with a sharp piece of wood begin to scratch away at it. Juice is squeezed out and the bulb is kneaded into a sticky mash. The liquid from the mash trickles into the bushman's open mouth. In the Kalahari, such nourishment can be vital to life. This large semi-desert has not always been the home of the San. Due to the arrival of white settlers, the tribe was driven deeper inland. The ability to create fire is a milestone in the history of mankind. The San have certainly mastered the technique known as fire drilling. In a short time, both bushmen have lit a small fire in front of their traditional hunting huts. How long these fascinating and proud people will continue to inhabit this extraordinary landscape is of course unknown. man must continue to be fully aware of his responsibility to nature. And nowhere more so than in southern Africa, that is one of the last natural paradises on Earth.